Hello again, everyone. Now it's time for our next keynote presentation. Um, I'm really happy to have the opportunity to introduce Madhu Rajesh as our third keynote presenter. Madhu is the Chief Executive Officer of Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, working closely with our member companies, partners, and key stakeholders to guide the industry's collaborative efforts on sustainability and community engagement. Madhu began her career in the hospitality and tourism industry starting from 1998, working in operations, sales, and marketing with leading companies, including Marriott International, Hilton, Starwood, and Emirates Airlines across the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and the UK. Since 2009, Madhu has worked in the not-for-profit sector on a range of development issues, including poverty and inequality, education and livelihood, gender equality, water and sanitation, sustainable cities, and human rights. She has a very diverse industry background. Madhu holds the number of non-executive roles, including chairperson for Clean Team Ghana and mentor for Cartier's Women's Initiative Awards. She holds the MBA from INSEAD. Today, her presentation topic is digital transformation and sustainability in the hospitality industry. I believe this will be a really highly relevant topic to this community. With this, I would like to give you Madhu Rajesh. You are muted, Madhu.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you for that introduction and also for the opportunity to be here with all of you today and share some perspectives on technology and the integration with hospitality industry in promoting sustainability. So it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'll start with a short presentation and I'm going to share my screen now. So please do let me know if that works as it should. Bear with me a second. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Great. So I think this is the first time actually that I'm speaking on this topic. So and it's been very interesting putting it together because we see technology all around us. We use technology, and a lot of our sustainability solutions that we are either using or seeing coming up are technology enabled. But putting it all together just brought the whole role that the industry can play in promoting sustainability with tech solutions all in perspective. And yeah, looking forward to sharing that with you all today. So just to start by telling you a little bit about Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. We are a not-for-profit organization that brings together the hospitality industry and a number of key brands to work collectively on their sustainability agenda. We currently have 14 organizations that are part of the alliance, and that represents together about 30,000 hotels and approximately 25% of the industry globally by number of rooms. Our brands are very different, and you'll see from some of the logos on the screen that they are some of the largest and the most well-recognized names that we have as part of our membership, as well as some of the smaller brands. Our smallest hotel member company has 4 hotels. They're also very diverse in terms of either having a global footprint or some very regional or local hotel companies as well. And they have different ownership structures, being individually owned to being, part of a complex managed franchised ownership and management structure. And what that gives us is a lot of diversity of perspectives around the table, and an insight which is very unique in terms of what is the industry's needs at different levels and what does it take to promote solutions across the industry in a very coherent way. And our members are representative of just how the industry generally is as well. So I think there's a lot of beauty in that diversity of view, and it puts us in a unique situation to develop and co-create solutions with the industry or with the membership, but for the industry. When the UN SDGs were announced in 2015, so on the back of that, we did a lot of work around materiality assessment with our members to look at what were some of the most material issues that were confronting the industry when it comes to sustainability at the time and where collective action would have the biggest impact. And in doing so, we identified people and planet as our two focus areas. And within people, we felt human rights, which is recognizing the risks of modern slavery in our labor supply chains, was one big issue where collective action would make significant impact. And secondly, youth employment, because the industry traditionally has been a big employer of people with low levels of skills and education because of its low barriers to entry and getting people a foot into the employment ladder. So we felt youth employment was a big opportunity that faced the industry when it comes to the SDGs and overall development. I recognize that with the pandemic, at the moment, there have been a lot of job losses in the industry, but we also know that there's a huge amount of pent up demand, which will mean the industry will recover quite quickly after the pandemic. And so, in the long term, I do feel the opportunities for youth employment are still there, and we'll actually probably see the industry playing a greater role in recognizing the way livelihoods, education, and skills development opportunities have been impacted for young people. So I do feel the industry will play a greater role post pandemic going forward. Then, when it comes to our planet agenda, climate action and water stewardship, those were the two most important issues that we felt the industry should work collectively on. And therefore, that led to our development of our areas of action that we agreed with the industry. So, what does that mean in context of building back better? When we look at some of the trends over the last 8 to 9 months, we've all been impacted by the pandemic, and it's been almost a time when people have taken a step back to do a lot of soul searching on what's important to them. And some of the trends that we are seeing is an increased focus when it comes to individuals on recognizing the impact we are having on our planet, and that is reflecting in some of the statistics that we are seeing coming in, where travelers are saying that as they begin to travel again, sustainability will be an important criteria to them. They will be looking at eco-friendly accommodation, and that's been an increasing trend that we've seen across the board during the pandemic. So I do feel environmental sustainability going forward, or awareness and consciousness of our environmental impact will be enhanced. What will be interesting to see is, does that reflect in consumer decision making when it comes to the purchase decisions they make? And that will be quite a powerful area if that happens, but that remains to be seen. We have published our business case for sustainable hotels earlier this year, last year in March 2020. And we did that because we felt a lot of times sustainability is perceived to be something that adds cost, whereas we felt with our research that there's a business case, there's a financial business case to doing that, because very often when you think of the design of a building, and if you incorporate sustainability at a very early stage in the design process, some of the things that you could do actually have very low upfront investment requirements and have a short payback period. So in a long term, the return on investment justifies the cost of doing so, and the operational efficiencies it results in. So I think that busting that myth and encouraging early action in the area of sustainability will be quite critical as we think about our assets going forward. Youth employment, as I said, pre-pandemic, about 1 in 5 young people were not in education, employment, or training. If you look at all the challenges that have come with the closure of schools, the impact on education, the impact on employment at the most basic levels, young people have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And many who had decent jobs have lost jobs and will be looking at building back. And that will be a big part of our economic recovery. So investing in skills development will continue, as I said, to be a big priority. Human rights, again, this is an area where we feel people have been disproportionately impacted. So a lot of migrant workers that were working in different countries were lost their jobs and had to go back to their countries and wanting to make ends meet. support their families. People will be desperate to get jobs when opportunities arise again, and that will make them even more vulnerable to exploitation than before. And therefore, this will, we feel, continue to be an area of focus and something that needs to be thought of and acted upon very carefully as part of making sure we build back better and avoid exploitation. So, what role can technology play in all of this? And technology in hospitality, you would generally think, well, what are the opportunities here? And we've seen some coming up in terms of driving operational efficiencies, very much around contactless check-ins and a few other innovations that have helped with um, making operations more efficient, but also in terms of promoting the safety and hygiene and security of people in these times. But generally, when I've heard people talk about technology in the hospitality industry, people say, well, technology will reduce the number of jobs because of the level of automation it would bring in. And that is certainly one way of looking at it. But what I'd like to do is talk here through some solutions that will actually enhance the sustainability of operations in the industry. So bring a very different light to it and perhaps open on some ideas on how the two industries could perhaps collaborate better. So if we look at the key areas of opportunity, one certainly is in the area of renewable energy, which we feel is a huge area of development for both industries and potential. If we look at energy, about 30% of total core infrastructure investment going forward will be in the area of renewable energy, and that's a $25 trillion investment opportunity, and contributes a lot to the climate action agenda. And there are certain solutions that we are seeing coming up in this space, but potentially there's a lot more area of collaboration here. When we look at a whole range of issues that add to that are priority for the industry in terms of our environmental impact, measuring water, measuring overall energy use, measuring waste, all kinds of waste, food waste, plastic waste, all kinds of waste is a priority because what gets measured gets managed. So we've developed over the past 10 years standardized tools for measuring water and carbon across hotels, and some of our tools are used by 25,000 odd hotels across the world as a standard way of measuring and benchmarking. And the data from these tools feeds into the Cornell Hotel Sustainability Benchmark. And I do feel technology has played and will continue to play a big role there when it comes to industry benchmarking there. We've also seen a lot of different innovations come up over the past decade. The role of technology in guest experience. You see all kinds of sensors which monitor guest movement and when your lights come on, or air conditioning temperature, and all of those are small things, but they add quite a lot in terms of generating energy savings across the hotel. So a lot more scope to think about tech savvy developments and innovations there. We've seen a lot of a role coming up for open source trainings because what we saw was pre-pandemic there was a lot of companies wanted to develop their own in-house trainings, but what we're seeing is there's a lot more openness for standardized trainings these days because companies realize that there's limited resources that they have to develop trainings. Secondly, most of the trainings when you develop them at an industry level can be standardized while customized. So both of those are not don't need to be mutually exclusive, and therefore the development of open source trainings to capacity build a whole industry on key issues is certainly an area of opportunity where tech can play a role with e-learnings and a whole range of stuff. And in that, these could be trainings for hotel staff, but also for vulnerable young people with low levels of skills. We looked at during the pandemic. We looked at moving our youth employment program online because obviously face-to-face delivery was not possible, and we ran into a challenge because a lot of our young people are in the developing world. they don't have access to computers very often. They don't have access to the internet or phones, or even if they do have access, it's not of the quality that it needs to be. Internet connectivity varies from country to country. So there's certainly a big role technology can play in making a lot of resources and the whole education experience more accessible for people that need it the most. Um, Sorry, I'll just go back to the role technology can play in migration as well as employment. So there are two things that we've seen here. Um, First of all, when it comes to migration of people when they go from one country to another, there's a lot of opaqueness in that chain because people work with different suppliers, and very often you're talking about rural migrants who don't know what migration for a job involves. There's limited information, and there's a lot of middlemen in that value chain. And this is where we feel technology can play a big role because they could probably get some kind of pre-departure training, orientation, understanding of what to expect, the kind of documents that they might need. So that could be one area of opportunity. The second is, in the developed world, it's very common that you want to apply for a job. You go on a company's website and you apply for a job. That is a standard way of applying for a job. But why does there need to be so much complexity and so many middlemen in a recruitment chain when it comes to recruitment between developing country of origin and developed market? Is there a role that technology can play in simplifying the recruitment chain? That's certainly another area of opportunity. And the third thing that I would like to talk about, and we sort of saw that a lot when it came to um, the pandemic in its early days, when a lot of hotel companies unfortunately had to let their workers go, and we sort of saw that a number of them looked at setting up apps and portals where they could provide that connectivity between their workers who had certain skills and experience and sectors that were hiring, whether that was healthcare or retail or pharmaceuticals. And we've seen a lot of apps being developed quite quickly to be able to facilitate that sort of access and used very effectively in certain economies and in certain markets. So is that also an area of opportunity when we know that over the next 5 7 years unemployment will be an issue, and as industries recover, actually they will be looking for hiring people to fill up those vacancies quickly. So is there a matchmaking opportunity that technology can play in the short term that will alleviate some of the pressures that we will see over the next couple of years? So I think those are some of the areas that technology is already beginning to play a role, but also some where there's room for more work to be done. So that's it for me in terms of a presentation, and I'm happy to take questions.
Well, thank you very much, Madhu. This is very inspiring, and I'm sure we will get some questions from the audience. I personally, I feel this is the high level discussion, right? You frame the problem of sustainability, in relation to a number of big problems like equality and human rights and employment, what's the future, etc. Right? So this is a very, very important conversation about the industry, and to talk about specific strategic areas like open training, energy saving, performance monitoring, where technology can play a really important role in those areas. So I have many questions, of course, but primarily, to be more specific, who is responsible for the development of sustainable technology in the hospitality sector? It's just the tech community, or it's broader, like everyone should be involved and contribute to. What's your take on that?
That's a really good question. And, I'm a firm believer in SDG 17, which is all about partnerships, multi-sector partnerships. And I feel some of the challenges that that face us and actually have been even more enhanced by the pandemic, they're too big for any one company, any one industry to solve on their own. So, to design some of these solutions, I think collaboration is key, and that collaboration needs to be between the private sector, across industries. So perhaps hospitality and technology industry could look at collaboration with governments, with the not-for-profit sector and civil societies. So, we are all part of an ecosystem. We all have different skills. We all have different experiences that needs to come on the table to be able to work together and co-create some of these solutions. And if I put that in context, so some of the technology needs that we see from a sustainability perspective, we may have created some tools with our knowledge and insights of the industry, with the hospitality industry on the table, and those tools may be, in a basic format, and perhaps technology can help make them more accessible. And the same goes for trainings and a whole number of solutions. Maybe there's an opportunity for the tech industry and the hospitality industry and ourselves to sit across a table and see, well, how do we make it better? How do we make it more accessible? And how do we promote it and create awareness about it? So, there's cross-sector, cross-industry collaboration, which is going to be key for these solutions. I wouldn't say the responsibility sits with any one company or any one industry or individual.
Well, fantastic. Guess what? We have a couple questions from the audience. The first one is, where do you see the most important keys to raise the accessibility to digital education in the hotel industry?
Sorry, could you repeat that question? So it's about accessibility of digital education in the industry.
I guess it's important. It's like, what are the keys to improving accessibility to digital education in the industry?
Well, first of all, understanding what the requirements are for certain category of jobs so that you can create resources that would meet that market need. And that's been a big project that my organization's been working on. So we worked with the industry to understand what are the entry-level requirements for certain key jobs, largely where opportunity youth or disadvantaged young people would get their first job. So, housekeeping, food and beverage, food production, and service. Those are the key areas where typically a young person would get their first job. So understanding what would be the bare minimum criteria that would help them with that. And that's a curriculum we've developed and will be launching later this summer. But then, when you look at launching it and after a successful pilot, then how do you make it accessible? How do you ensure quality control? How do you ensure partners are aware of it? What's the model in terms of who provides that training and how do you certify it? The hospitality industry is global. How do you reach hotels across the world and say, if you want to employ people with a certain level of skills or a certain profile, this is how you could support them in a better way. And then I think the other question is, a lot of those skills are transferable. And we've seen that during the pandemic when we, provided employment support in other sectors. A lot of the skills are transferable. So it's not a curriculum that needs to remain restricted to the hospitality industry. How do you engage with other industries and get them to adopt the curriculum? So if there's a hospital recruiting for cleaning staff, the same skills are transferable. They could easily have that. So those are the key issues that I'm working with, and I don't know how technology can get involved or what the easy solutions are, but that's a conversation to be had and say, okay, here are some of the problems. Let's work together on the solutions.
I like it. I think you don't have to, to talk about technology per se, but you give people food for thought, right? That's very useful. Another question I think it's really important for you is from your organization's point of view. I'm sure you mentioned it somewhere, because this is Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. This is the organization you're leading, right? What are the tools and resources can one access or make use of from your organization? I think probably you could elaborate on that.
Sorry, could you please repeat the question?
From your organization, right? What do you offer, like as tools, as resources?
Absolutely. So there's a number of tools there for carbon and water measurement for any hotel across the world. The tools that we've developed and are being used, as I mentioned, by about 25,000 hotels across the world. Those are free tools. They're available on our website. The methodology for measurement is available on our website, absolutely for free, and webinars on how people could learn how to use those tools as well. So that tool, the functionality, and the guidance to use it is all there, and anyone can go and download and begin to use it. The other tool that we offer is Hilton, one of our member companies, developed a training for procurement staff to help them recognize signs of modern slavery in their supply chains, donated that training to us, and we've made that available again for free for the whole industry to go on our website and download. The business case that we've developed for sustainability, a lot of design guides on if you're thinking of designing a hotel, what kind of sustainability features should you look in. Those are all tools that we've developed and are available on our website. So for each of our areas of work, if you are looking at employing people and you need a guideline for ethical recruitment, those sort of resources are all available for free to download from our website. And there's more coming in 2021.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madhu. I think this is why I feel so happy to connect you with the audience, with the community here. One last question from the audience. Do you think, this is more about your opinion, there is the commitment from the largest hospitality businesses to sustainability in its widest sense? What's your opinion?
Well, absolutely. And to be honest, this has been a really difficult and completely unprecedented year for the hospitality industry. I started my own career in hotels, at the grassroots level, and know the industry well. And when you have a hotel, it's a 24/7 business. It never closes its doors. And in the last year, we've seen hundreds of thousands of hotels close their doors, and many will not open their doors again. So that's the reality of the times that we've lived in. And despite that, they supported the launch of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance in October, following a demerger with our parent organization. So, in the middle of the pandemic, the industry stepped up and supported our launch. And equally, they have continued to work with us on key issues. They're still looking at what could be done in the immediate aftermath of the pandemic, and as a support their communities. You would have seen a lot of initiatives from individual hotels in stepping up with the communities, whether that's becoming quarantine centers or shelters for homeless or victims of domestic abuse, or a whole range of vulnerable population. Um, you know, so all of that's continued as good community citizenship during the pandemic. But throughout, they are looking at, well, what can we do for future as recovery starts? So, an industry that's on its knees and still talking about sustainability, both in the immediate future as well as, as part of building back better, I could not say anything more than there's a huge commitment from the C-suite downwards for sustainability in the industry.
Well, it's glad to hear. But final question, Madhu, it's from me, because you are our final keynote speaker. So I will place the responsibility on you to reflect on maybe on all the big issues. So the final question is, what matters the most for the future of tourism before we close this session? So this is the big question for you.
Absolutely, and very glad to answer that. I think what we've learned through the pandemic is how critical tourism is for economies, and therefore, the role it can play in employment of people, the role it can play as, in really engaging with the communities, and with the environment agenda. So I think that's been a big learning, because before the pandemic, there was a lot of conversation going on about over tourism, but actually everyone's now just realized that when tourism stops, the economy has an impact. So it's a two-way process, and I expect to see a lot more positivity and effort from both ways in that going forward. Equally, I think there's been a huge awareness about the impact each one of us as individuals and our businesses have on the ecosystem around us. So I do see the consumer trends around sustainability, and therefore consumer demand for sustainability increasing. And I think when those two come together, the force of demand and supply, then you will see a lot more impetus and a lot more probably a faster paced movement on sustainability, as we as businesses and consumers start holding, not just in the tourism industry, but across all sectors, all brands accountable for the impact they have. So I think that is a trend not just for the tourism industry, but across all, it's a change that we'll see coming in how we as individuals, but also as companies operate.
Well, Madhu, thank you very much for offering a vision for our future. I think this is really important, and it is what is driving this community. I feel really honored to have you here, and I would like to wish you good luck in your future endeavors. Stay in touch with us. Stay in touch with iFit. Thank you
Thank you,
very
will
much,
do.
Madhu.
And equally, can I just say, if anyone has any ideas of how the two industries can work together, please do feel free to reach out.